Operations is never going to disappear, even after AI. Core of every business is operations. If there are no operations, it's not a business then, right? It's not scary, it's stressful, primarily because there are a lot of deadlines and all that pressure starts trickling down on the operations people.
Basically, operations is the key leadership role in the field of business, we can say, right?
It's no longer brand versus brand, it's about supply chain versus supply chain.
Hello, everyone. Today we have Professor Adil Kalyal. He teaches operations at UFR. He has had an extensive portfolio of supply chain and management too. And in today's podcast, primarily we'll be chatting about careers in field of supply chain and careers in field of operations. And also because of his professional experience in supply chain and also in the industrial part and then in the academic part of things, we're going to chat about, in his opinion, in his experience, what kind of students would fit in which field best. Because everyone has a strength and everyone has a weakness. So what kind of personalities and what strengths would align best in the field and how someone can make it big, just like him? So we are really happy to have you, first of all, sir. And I'm quite excited when I saw your resume. The thing that impressed me a lot is that you have studied in a lot of countries, Pakistan, UK, US, and then you are now here in Canada. And you have experience of a lot of countries too. So first of all, what brought you in Canada? After studying in UK, after being in US, after being in Saudi, what was the primary thing?
So primarily when we moved to Canada was like the family moved to Canada before I did. And my wife, she was doing her PhD at Western in London, Ontario. And eventually we decided like, okay, this is where we'd like to stay. Because kind of Canada adopted us and it's our first home now. It was our second home, but now we call it our first home. So we're very happy to be in Canada. It has been very kind to us and we love it here.
And that's interesting. And what made you come in the field of teaching? Was there some passion or something that made you motivated to teach students?
Very interesting. So, it all started with the first opportunity that I got.
Yeah.
So I am from the industry. My whole life I've been in the industry. And teaching, yes, in between I've been training people. Yes, I've got a small stint to teach people at a university in Pakistan. But eventually when I got to Canada, the first opportunity I got was a teaching opportunity. And it's like, okay, that's a nice start. I can start off, share my knowledge and polish my own skills too. Like, I've been doing all these things, but now I get to read the theory behind it. And I started enjoying it. And eventually I found out that I was pretty okay at it. I was like, students liked me and I got good feedback. So I continued and here I am. 3 years later, I'm full-time into academia now.
That's cool. So you're teaching operations management here at UFR, right?
In UFR, I teach operations management, project management, information systems, and strategic management.
Okay.
So that's what our main subjects that I teach.
So how do you see operations in business in general? Like not from the academic part, but from the professional part. How do you define operations in one line?
Core of any business is operations. So any business you have, if you don't have operations, you don't have a business, right? So core of every business is operations, and then everything else is around it to support those operations.
Okay, and why do you see there is a need of operations? Like if you can elaborate it a bit from both professional side of things and for both academic side of things.
So primarily operations, any business operations. So any business that you think about will have operations. If there are no operations, it's not a business then, right? So that's the core of any business, are their operations. Now, the business operations or the core could be different for different organizations. So automobile manufacturing would be making cars. Aircraft manufacturing would be making airplanes. A bakery would have, making bread and all that. So those are their operations. A university has its own operations, and those are like, all the teaching and all. That's the university operations. And it's not, the operations are For every business, there are operations. However, it varies between the type of business that you're in, right? So I would say like operations are everywhere and they are the core, they are the key.
Okay. And why do you think there is a need of doing a degree in operations? So from there, what I mean is that day-to-day operations, for example, let's take an example of teaching. You are a teacher, but daily operations you can manage by yourself, right? So
Exactly.
why is there a need for a student to do a degree specifically or a major in operations, and how he can stand out? Because obviously it requires some specific responsibilities that some small business cannot manage on its own, or some big business either.
Absolutely. So like I said, every business
Yeah.
or every operation is going to be specific to its core. So whatever the core is, it's going to be specific. The operations are going to be specific to that. However, there are parts which are going to be common between you. Say, for example, as an instructor,
Yeah.
there are classes scheduled for me, right? So there's a schedule of classes. So which class I would be teaching at what point in time. Similarly, there's a schedule for students. All these schedules are also part of operations. So you're scheduling operations, you're scheduling classes, you're scheduling students who can attend the class, so that there's not a mismatch or there's not a conflict between those two. So that's just in academia.
Got it.
You go into manufacturing. You
Yeah.
have machinery, right? You have people. So which people work on what machinery at what point in time? You need to have a schedule. So that's part of your operations. So besides how things are made, what processes are followed, just scheduling, just one aspect of operation would be common throughout.
Okay, I get it. What are the 4 key modules in operations if we see from a practical lens?
So if you look at operations from a practical lens, so in primarily what I've seen over
Yeah.
time, supply chain management is a big part of its operation. At times, inventory is separated from supply chain, but at times it's kept independent. So we would have that. Quality is another aspect.
Okay.
And then depending on your organizations, you could have some of the support functions to come in, like HR would come in, where operations would be. And primarily because you're looking at labor or you're looking at people which need to be coming in and going out of a particular thing. I think these are primarily the main.
And as a professor, you have been teaching since a while at UFR, right? So in your experience, what kind of student, or what student with what kind of personality can make it good in operations management?
Okay, now operations management, it's a very wide field. I missed out legal and on all that too. So if you look at operations, you're looking at getting things done. You're getting a product made. For example, if you're looking into manufacturing, there's a product that needs to be delivered, right? So anybody and everybody could be part of a supply chain, and it doesn't require a special skill. I know so many engineers who move into supply chain, primarily because they understand mechanics or they understand electronics, and they're very good at purchasing them.
Yeah.
So they come into the part of the supply chain where you're looking at procurement and purchasing. And then I know a lot of lawyers who got into supply chain because they're very good at contract law, and they make good contracts with the suppliers or the customers that the things are going to. Then again, varying with industry, I know a lawyer who was probably one of the best supply chain managers that I've met.
Got it.
And then I've known engineers who are just on top of their game when you talk about supply chain management. Then project management. That's a key. A lot of people who are good at project management are good at supply chain management. Yeah. Besides that, what I've seen is people with communication skills, because a lot of communication goes into operations. You need to continuously talk to people and you need to coordinate things. So supply chain and operations and all these things require good communication skills.
So
People with those would do well.
so someone who has strength in communication skills primarily, right?
I would say who's good at
Like if you're in
coordinating.
a class, how would you define that this in this group I'm seeing that this person can be good, would make it good in operations if he makes his career in operations management. So communication,
How well
responsibility.
you're organized. People who are
Yeah.
more organized, who are able to keep things in boxes and keep themselves organized, I've noticed they do the best job.
So overall, like management skills would be a primary thing, right?
Management skills, self-discipline, basically be able to
Yeah.
organize yourself, numerical efficiency as well. Just not, don't need to know calculus or anything, just basic mathematics.
Yeah, I personally find operations quite scary as a field as a student because there's a lot of responsibility associated to that.
Yes.
Like when it comes to other fields, like operations guy is the mid of everything, right? You have to coordinate with marketing, you have to coordinate with HR, you have to coordinate with everyone. So that's something I feel that requires a lot of leadership, but comes with a lot of responsibility. I worked at my uncle's restaurant and we opened a new restaurant, so basically I was the unofficial manager or the key person when he was not there, and it gives you a lot of responsibility when you're in operations. I see that when you do marketing, there is responsibility, but comparatively based on results, not based on keeping everything aligned. So do you find operations scary, or is it just me who finds it like super scary?
It's not scary, I would say.
Yeah.
It's stressful.
Stressful.
Yes. I wouldn't term it as scary, but there's a lot of stress involved. Primarily because there are a lot of deadlines. And
Yeah.
you see, like if material isn't moving at the right speed, like you order raw material and you don't get raw material. That means if you don't have raw material at your factory, all your factory workers are sitting. Your expenses are not going to stop. You still have to pay the rent. You still have to pay the bills. You still have to pay everyone's salary. So those people are sitting doing nothing. You
Yeah.
don't have raw material. You're not manufacturing anything. So there's a lot of pressure. Although it's like your supplier says like, oh, it's going to get there in 2 extra days.
Yeah.
You say like 2 extra days. 2 extra days is a lot of money for us. And all that pressure starts trickling down on the operations people.
So basically, operations is the key leadership role in the field of business, we can say, right?
To a great extent.
Yeah, because I think CEOs are the people who see operations at the end of the day.
I agreed. CEOs part of I won't say like they would see day-to-day operations.
Yeah, but they have to see the operations of the other managers. Like they have to lead the team, but
so they'd come up with strategy and make sure that those leaders are delivering on those strategy.
so it's the key leadership role.
It is a key leadership role along with sales.
Sales and a lot of responsibilities, because you are responsible for sales, you're responsible for hiring and everything, because everyone's going to report the operations person that, hey, we hired this guy, so are you good with that? So he's the like soul of the company, can we say that?
Exactly. Primarily, it's the soul. You see, the operations are going to create a product or a service, right? The salespeople are going to go out there and sell that product or service.
Yeah.
So pressure comes upon operations. If they are unable to deliver that product or service, the salespeople are going to come after you. And similarly, if they're not able to produce or deliver that service, there's going to be no revenue.
Yeah.
So operations become key. However, we have seen that a lot of finance people also end up leading
to operations.
Lead operations too, because now they have the financial understanding. So they're looking at, okay, this is the amount of sales, this is the demand, market demand.
Yeah.
This is what our operational capability is, and like this is the amount of money we have. So I've seen a lot of finance people come into operations too.
Perfect. And as a professor teaching operations at University of Regina, one of the best schools in Canada, especially when it comes to competitions, UFR has been winning a lot of business competitions.
Absolutely.
So question I have, in one line, what would you say to someone who wants to pursue a career in operation? Like one advice to someone, maybe you can see the camera too.
Okay, so operations is never going to disappear. So
Even after AI?
even after AI,
Why?
operations would be there. Like, hey, somebody has to make the product.
Yeah.
Those operations will still exist. So operations and supply chain would always be there. The product, the item has to move physically. Until and unless we have a new system where things are teleported, till then you need operations to move products from manufacturing to the end user.
So to a high extent, operations is one of those fields which is likely to be at the very end and still gonna be very tough for AI to replace in robots, right? Because you're the captain of the ship, just like a film, the director is the captain of the ship.
Yeah, of course, like they say, nothing is replaceable, but
Yeah.
a few things would stay there. Like a lot of operations might become automated. AI might take over a lot of operations. You're talking about manufacturing, you're talking about services. However, even in manufacturing, the product itself needs to move.
Yeah.
So the kind of operations that would happen would be different then, or reduced. So transportation and logistics operations might continue. So those services would be long term. The supply chains would continue. Maybe supply chains are automated through AI, but even then there is a lot of transportation, and at times things would need to be actually picked up and handed over to somebody.
Coming over supply chain, you have a good experience of supply chain and you studied supply chain from US, from UK as well. So what's supply chain industry and like what are the responsibilities associated to someone who is pursuing a career in supply chain?
So for supply chain,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's an industry. Although it is
A separate field, but
it's a separate field.
interconnected with the same field of operations, right?
Operation. So supply chain management, like I would like simplify it, is you're managing, so you have to make a product and deliver it to a customer, right? For that, you need to buy raw materials. And in the end, you need to have finished products delivered to your customers. Now, what the supply chain does is it looks at where you buy the raw material, how much you buy, when you buy, and then once you get it, how do you convert it into a product, finished good? Once you've done that, how do you deliver it to your customer?
These were the 5 points of supply chain, which I really liked when you told me about in the pre-interview as well. So if you guys are like done with these 5 points, this is the one-liner of supply chain.
Yeah. So the points that I talked about always do is like, if you can like understand these, source, make, deliver, returns, and you plan everything.
Yeah.
Plan for your sourcing, where you get your raw material, plan for your operations, that would be making that product, and a plan for delivering those products, including a plan for, in case your product is not accepted by your customer, how does it come back into the system? That's the return. And then returns is like, if you don't like the raw material that you received, how does it go back to the supplier? So if you can understand these 5 words, you have any and every supply chain sorted out in your life.
Comes up with a lot of responsibility. Like you have to do work from the start of the product to end of the product.
Absolutely. So now the supply chain creates opportunities at different places.
Yeah.
For sourcing, there's a different set of people, different set of skills that are needed. So like I talked about, in sourcing, you're looking at a lot of procurement and purchasing. That's where I talked about a lot of lawyers, a lot of finance people, engineers are involved, right? Manufacturing, all the engineers are. So the make bit where you're converting a raw material into a finished good, now you're talking about engineers converting them. Now you're talking about machinery, equipment, high-end electronics, softwares, PLMs, all those things are coming in. Then you get to the delivery bit. There you're talking about sales, marketing, your sales channels. So all of your sales and sales channels and all those channels come in play. And then you get all those products to your customers. How do you get them there? You put them on ships, trains, airplanes, and finally, like as what is the latest, the newest bit is called last mile delivery, where you pick it up from the warehouse and you deliver it to the final consumer.
Seems quite stressful field.
No, it is not stressful. It's actually
Because you worked in Saudi Arabia, you mentioned. So
Yes.
how was your experience? Did you find it stressful, or how do you compare it with your current job of teaching? Because if you're doing the sourcing of the product and coordinating with everyone, including the operations team, marketing team, and everyone, and then even communicating with the sales team, it comes to be like a job connected with a lot of responsibility. That's what I feel.
Indeed, it is a lot of responsibility, but so is teaching.
Yeah.
You see, for me, every student counts. I look at every student and I want to make sure that once that student leaves the classroom, he goes home with knowledge.
Yeah.
And that can be applied. Yes, in the industry, there you have a lot of support because you have a lot of people helping you out with your tasks.
Yeah.
So you're maybe I was heading the department, right? With heading the department, I had a number of people who I delegated different tasks and they would do that. And I was at the forefront dealing with the management, dealing with the customers,
Okay.
So the stress level is there. Getting work out of people is there. There are different stresses there, but
is supply chain a high paying degree as well? How do you see that?
Supply chain is a high paying degree. I wouldn't say the highest paying.
Yeah,
but
in terms of business.
In terms of business, you see, every business needs a supply chain.
Yeah.
So there is a need of those people. Every company has operations. Every company is getting something and giving it to its customer, or making something and giving to the customers. So the supply chain plays in
a lot of role. Yeah. And in terms of students, what's the ideal personality for someone who wants to pursue a career in supply chain? Same like operations, leadership skills, or something that he additionally needs to make it good in supply chain?
Depending on which part of the supply chain he wants to go in.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people who are very good at mathematics.
Yeah.
So
is maths required to do supply chain degree or no?
No. There is a certain amount.
Okay.
So you can't be zero in mathematics. And you need to understand how things add up and subtract. So how do you convert, all those things, but not basics. I'm not talking about calculus and you're solving those differential equations or anything. Nothing like that. Plain, simple mathematics, addition, multiplication, subtraction, and division. That's all that you need. But you need to understand how and when to use it. So there is a part of supply chain management in which you're forecasting. You're forecasting. Sales are forecasted, right? Just like in sales and marketing. Based on your sales forecast, you identify how much you're going to manufacture. Right? So
yeah.
Once you've done that, the next thing you do is you calculate the amount of raw material required to be able to fulfill that forecast. There are people who are very good at doing those calculations all the way through. So yes, somebody who is looking at a career in demand planning and demand management, yes, with mathematical skills, that's the person to be. Somebody who is very good at contracts or legal.
Yeah.
He could be looking at procurement, where they're doing long-term contracts, procurement contracts with different companies.
Got it. And how do you see the future of both of the fields? Either we talk about operations or supply chain. Since AI is coming up and we are expecting that in a world of post-age AI, where a lot of things would be automized, a lot of companies will have their own AI robots who would be doing a lot of work. Either it's related to operations, like if you're working in a warehouse, robots can put the stuff and take it out. Just something what Amazon just did recently. So how do you see the future of supply chain and operations overall in the post-AI world? I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about 2050, potentially.
What my vision of the future is that at the moment, we are identifying what the robots need to do.
Yeah.
Right? Slowly and gradually, with AI, with their intelligence and with the ability to connect dots, the neural networks that
Yeah.
we're talking about, they would be able to come up with very efficient supply chains. If the robots by that time, by 2015, are able to
Yeah.
handle small packages and all that, yes, a lot of human interference would disappear at that point in time.
So how are we students gonna compete with them, since we will be alive in 2050 potentially? So for someone who is gonna do a degree right now in 2026 and gonna graduate by 2030 maybe, what fields in operations or supply chains do you think are AI free, and how to strategically position oneself while doing a degree?
Eventually,
Yeah.
Understanding the supply chain. These students or these people who have been working in the supply chains understand how the supply chain works. And the future AI and the future supply chain, they play a big role in identifying how to make them, how to create those supply chains, and how to optimize them. You see, even with human beings have limited intelligence.
Yeah, there are things.
There are things that they cannot do. Some computers do it much better than that, and especially when they're making correlations, because they have a much better ability to make those relationships. We have too, but we have our limitations. There is going to be still a lot of things that human beings would have to do. However, I believe that there might be new things coming up.
But what entry-level positions you see? Because I know that once they are experts of everything, humans need someone to supervise that position. But for example, right now there are 10 people. There would be a survival of the fittest. There would be 4 people maybe working in the same field who would be supervising most of the automized things or the robots, and while doing the work of the coordination in between. So how do you see the entry-level positions? Because someone who is graduating as a student in 2030 is going to do an entry-level position. So how do you compare the current entry-level positions with the new world's entry-level positions?
By 2013, not much would have changed.
Yeah.
But by 2015, we hope a lot has changed. If the geopolitical situations remain
calm,
which is they're in a huge turmoil right now.
Yeah.
The supply chains are impacted too, because things are going to, if oil doesn't flow, if the transportation doesn't move, if the ships are not able to move around, supply chains are going to be impacted. And the new saying is, it's no longer brand versus brand. It's about supply chain versus supply chain. Whoever has a better supply chain would be successful. Whether those supply chains are run by humans or by AI, you would still need a supply chain. But I believe AI and supply chain, there's going to be a creation of a new kind of work too.
A hybrid model, right?
A hybrid model. Could be new things. There are so many things that we didn't even think of.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember cameras with films in them.
Yeah.
Those days. You would go to every city, there'd be hundreds of shops would be developing those films and giving you those printouts.
Yeah.
All of those has disappeared. You no longer see that. Where did those people go? What happened to that industry?
The industry changed into a new era of filmmaking, right?
Exactly.
So supply chain would go into a same thing, but it's gonna change.
You're looking at 3D printing.
Yeah.
Maybe that evolves to a much higher degree. So supply chains start revolving around 3D printing.
Got it.
That's just an idea. Could be multiple things that you could think of. Designing, you're looking at human need. What do people need?
Got it.
What are the supply chains going to deliver? What we need?
And before we end the academic part, one question which I have is that for someone like me, I'm a student at UFR as well. What are the co-op opportunities for someone who is going to be majoring in supply chain potentially? I know UFR doesn't offer supply chain as of now, but for someone who wants to pursue a career in supply chain overall in Canada, what are the entry-level positions do you think available within Canada for co-op or for a job for a recent graduate? Same goes for operations.
Very similar, both of them. So you see, for supply chain, all retail outlets used to look at Walmart, Sobeys, all these grocery stores. They have big supply chains.
Yeah.
And a big portion I had to study was like what happens to the retail outlet. Now, if you look at the retail outlet, it is the last bit as to where the supply chain is connecting to the consumer. If you work there, even that is a good connection. That is knowledge to have. I actually went and worked a few days in a retail store just to understand. Yes, I knew the theory, I knew everything, but I wanted to understand how does it feel working there? How does it feel to fill up a rack? What happens when I go back into the warehouse? How are the trucks coming in? What is everything? What are the dynamics? So retail is one. There's a lot of opportunity in retail. Procurement is another. There's a lot of procurement which has not yet been automated. There's a lot of AI coming in procurement, but that is the supporting role. So AI is helping you find different suppliers and is able to evaluate different suppliers. Maybe it is doing some text mining as well and finding out what are people saying about this supplier.
Okay.
So these are like some. Then all the industries that you see, anywhere there's buying, anywhere there's coordination needing, there's a supply chain requirement.
Okay. One last question before we end. It's, I think, the first time someone is asking a business professor about business. So if you get an XYZ amount of money, how much would that be? And what business would you open if you had that amount of capital? And how would you manage the operations and supply chain and make your business successful? A lot of we went to students and we asked them, what question should we ask a business professor? Some of your class students too, they said, ask him that if he had capital and if he had time, then what would you do in terms of business and why? And how would you market it and make it profitable?
So my quick answer, entertainment.
Entertainment business.
Entertainment industry. I know it's like a very common saying, but have you heard the saying like, there is no biz like showbiz?
Why is that so?
There is all the money there. All the money is in showbiz.
Can you share us a framework? What would you do? And how much capital would you need building out an actual business out of that?
I'm not sure about the amount of capital. Capital could vary, but I like music. So music industry would be something. Yes, AI is producing a lot of music and all that, but human creativity is far better than AI at the moment.
So what would you do specifically in the music industry? Like be a singer or something, or what?
Not myself. I would invest into singers. I would invest into artists. I would get them, like help them do more work, come up with creative give them that opportunity.
And how would you come out as profitable in that?
So primarily I would be an investor. I would be investing in all that. And once you invest into certain, like there's like music that they're produced, now you're going to sell them. Now that's the important thing. Now you market the music that you have. You have a product, you start marketing. How well you market it is going to be how well you're going to sell it.
So working as a record label where you make out a deal in terms of royalty or something.
Yes, the record label is like the old days, but something similar.
So guys, that was all for today. And before we end the podcast, one advice for someone who is interested to pursue a career in business or in supply chain, what would that be?
If you're looking at supply chain as a career, I would like really encourage you, because supply chain today looks at the whole world. You're looking at your products moving throughout the whole world, and you're communicating with everyone in the world. So embark on an adventure, go see the world. The supply chain management and supply chain roles would get you everywhere in the world. And it's a brave new world out there. New things, AI, technology, all that, you'd love it. So it's for the people who want to grow, who want to live life. Supply chain is the place to be.
So lastly, before we end the podcast, one thing I'll say that Professor is definitely a smart person. He knows how to manage operations, because if he was 20, what he said to us that he would have invested in different artists and made money out of that. That proves that you're a smart business person. Thank you very much, sir, for coming here today and giving us your time, and looking forward that people are able to learn, because at the end of the day, a lot of students, what I felt was that don't have a proper guidance, because if I'm from Saskatchewan, or if I'm gonna end up like doing a degree within Saskatchewan, I would want to hear from the people of Saskatchewan that why do a degree in Saskatchewan. And I find that this chat was quite insightful, and a lot of students would be able to connect with you too. So if anyone wants to connect with him, I'll add his email as well in the description, so you guys can get connected. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this podcast. It's a great initiative. Really appreciate it. A few of us professors we were talking about, and that's it. This is a brilliant initiative. Good
Thank
job.
you very much.